Here's Brody Brazil.
We could be less than a month away until Major League Baseball ultimately takes a vote on relocation of the A's to Las Vegas. November 14th through the 16th in Arlington, Texas, all of the team owners get together for their annual meeting. Maybe this gets brought up. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's days or weeks after that, but you'd have to think in the very near future and sometime in this calendar year, baseball owners are going to take this to a vote. And as much as everybody's focused on what the A's are doing right now, what baseball's doing right now, the thoughts and sentiments coming out of Southern Nevada right now, the focus has really shifted away on the city of Oakland, and largely in part because they've kind of gone silent in recent times. Really, through the month of September and into October, you have not heard much from Mayor Sheng Tao, anybody else on the city council, any other leaders in the city of Oakland. They've really refrained from commenting or being involved in keeping the A's or dealing with Major League Baseball or fighting for an expansion franchise, really anything across the board. We just haven't heard much. And so to really set the scene, I want to go back to the timeline of Oakland's involvement with the A's, with Howard Terminal, and with this process of trying to keep the team in Oakland. October of last year through April of this year, Oakland says that they maintained mutual silence on Howard Terminal negotiations. The mayor, Sheng Tao, has said this on numerous occasions. She and the A's agreed that it would be best to not negotiate where they were at in the public. And I can tell you on multiple occasions, I requested interviews thinking that everything was on good terms during those times, and both sides really said, can't talk about it right now. In retrospect, here and now, it makes a ton of sense. Both sides had agreed that they didn't want to talk about where things were at and going. But all of a sudden, and that's why it kind of came out of nowhere, April 19th, the A's said that they were going to put their sole focus on Las Vegas, that they were kind of turning their back on the city of Oakland. And then the city of Oakland responded by saying, well, we're breaking off any talks with you too after this, quote, binding deal was established at the Wild Wild West casino site west of the Strip. Now, we ultimately know that that's not where the A's are still planning on going. They've pivoted on that. But at the time, Oakland kind of made that move as a reactionary element to what was going on. And you'll kind of see here that Oakland has gone from playing defense to maybe even playing a little offense here. And I'm wondering if maybe they played too much offense and now they think they're backing off that. But that'll come in just a second. So after playing a little defense and reacting to what happened, nothing else really occurs except for some back and forth until July of 2023. During the All-Star break, and actually a couple days later, it was publicly revealed that Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao and her staff, they visited with MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred in Seattle at the All-Star game. And they delivered those informational packets to show where the A's and Oakland had been on Howard Terminal negotiations and discussions. Because you remember, Commissioner Manfred had been saying on multiple occasions that there was no deal, there was no plan. And she showed up with the receipts and the paperwork, at least of where things were at. She also brought packets for every other ownership group across baseball. So now, obviously, the city is playing a little bit more offense than defense. August of 2023, the mayor comes out with some speculation from her office saying that Oakland might actually demand something in return if an A's move is approved, and if the A's still want to continue playing at the Coliseum for 2025, 2026, in 2027. She wanted to use the Coliseum as leverage for something else, either keeping the team name and colors and mascot and identity of the A's in Oakland for future purposes, or potentially demanding that Oakland get an expansion franchise for 2028. That's very much on the offensive. But Commissioner Manfred came right back out and was not happy with any of that, denying that some of those talks had taken place. It got a little bit ugly pretty quickly. Which brings us to the present. We haven't heard much from the mayor. We haven't heard much from the city of Oakland. So let's kind of go down the checklist of where we're at here and now. What might be a good idea? What doesn't exist? What can't exist? The vote potentially in a month, as I said before, 14th through the 16th of November. Owners are getting together. Doesn't mean it'll happen then. They've already said that they can do this virtually. They can do this another time. So if you're the A's and you're not ready to do it by then, it seems foolish to try and rush that just to do it in person. There are still a couple weeks after that to get everything submitted and voted on, especially considering we haven't even seen renderings up to this point, and a lot of other details like where they'll play for a few years. We don't know that at this point. Oakland has been silent on both fronts, and I think that's noteworthy here because they're talking about working out a deal with the A's and how far they got. Then in August, it's suggested that, well, if they're going to leave, we want an expansion franchise. What is the aim? And is it better for them to aim for one thing or the other or both? I'm not here to tell you I know the answer to that, but I am here to say that I don't know what their aim is right now. There's nothing definitive. There's been no press conference. There's no document. There's no task force on this. There's no group on this. And I seek it. I seek for it every day. And I just don't see much coming out from them. So what is their aim? I think if they're moving forward and they want to do so in a positive fashion, they need to come out and say, well, here's what we're now aiming for. And it's fine if it's both. It's fine if it's one or the other, but I just don't know. What are the plans for Howard Terminal? What are the plans if they can get a different situation with the A's? What are the plans if there's a different ownership group that gets an expansion team for Oakland? What are the plans if there's no stadium at Howard Terminal? Is Oakland just going to sit on that 56-acre site for another decade? I mean, it's basically sat for the last 10 years, and that's why the A's have been interested in it, because of its availability. So what is Oakland saying on that? Now, we know that Joe Lacob came out during his WNBA press conference, and not on purpose, but was asked about potentially owning the A's and buying into that. And he said, of course, I've been interested, but they're not up for sale. But, I mean, he exists and he's out there. And I don't know if it's in Oakland's best interest to start naming names and pointing fingers and say, we've got that owner, that owner. They have said that they have multiple legitimate potential ownership groups that would like to be in on this. Does it make sense to go further than that? Does it make sense to identify some of them for future endeavors or whatever? I also understand that maybe Oakland was told on two fronts after the back and forth with the commissioner that when I say it didn't really go well, the commissioner is the one that came out with some heat, some tension, some anger at the mayor's office. It wasn't really a back and forth. It was the mayor saying what she said, and then the commissioner ultimately kind of shoving it right back in Oakland, kind of in their face. And by the way, when the World Series kicks off, the commissioner typically has one press conference before the series. I believe usually day before the series starts. And there's wide-ranging topics that are usually brought up. You'd have to think that this Oakland situation and a vote are definitely put in front of him to be answered. But maybe Oakland was asked, hey, can you not say much? Or maybe they recognize that you typically don't want to talk about other baseball news during the postseason. That's kind of an unwritten rule. It's why you don't hear a lot of managerial front office changes. I mean, there have been some departures, but you don't hear about hirings during the postseason. Teams want to kind of keep that as low profile as they can. They don't want to interrupt, and especially they don't want to interrupt the World Series. So my ultimate question here, Oakland's silence on all of this. Is it strategy? Is there a specific reason why they're doing this, that they think it's tactical to not say much, to let this play out? Are they doing things behind the scenes? I don't know. Or is it worse? And by worse, I mean, have they kind of just shut the door on their interests, their involvements, their efforts? I don't know. You might say, well, what are you? Yeah, me. What am I trying to do to find out more information? Sure. I'll reach out to Oakland. I'll reach out to the mayor's office. I don't know what we'll get out of that, because she's been doing press conferences. She's been available to talk about this. I'm just saying there's not a level of detail right now that's understood about where things stand and what Oakland is aiming to do about it. So Did they go silent? Well, technically for a couple weeks, yeah. It's not uncharacteristic. It hasn't been a tremendously long time, but we are reaching crunch time of all this. Have they said all they're going to say? Or is there more? You made it here to the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. Also, don't forget, subscribe to this channel so I can definitely see you back here next time.